The following program is a production of Pioneer Public Television.
In this episode of Postcards,
a noted biographer of Laura always says that on the banks of Plum Creek is the most pristine of all the Laura sites.
But I always have to remember that this is not about me, and the play is saying that too. This is something huger than all of us. There's no one person.
Well, I'm very happy because now the bonds between the cities are very strong.
This program on Pioneer Public Television is funded by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund, with money from the vote of the people of Minnesota on November 4, 2008. Additional support provided by Mark and Margaret Yackel-Julien in honor of Shalom Hill Farm, a nonprofit rural education retreat center in a beautiful prairie setting near Windham in southwestern Minnesota. ShalomHillFarm.org. The Arrowwood Resort and Conference Center, your ideal choice for Minnesota resorts offering luxury townhomes, 18 holes of golf, Darling Reflection Spa, Big Splash Water Park, and much more. Alexandria, Minnesota, a relaxing vacation or great location for an event. Explore alex.com. Easy to get to, hard to leave.
It's just nice how the town itself is always friendly. They greet people, give directions, no matter what corner you're at. If they're looking for the museum, they're looking for the dugout, a local will come over and ask you, hey, how can I help you? Amy, the museum director, calls it Minnesota nice, but I just think it's Walnut Grove great because they appreciate and embrace having the visitors here in town.
For the pageant director position, all right, there's not a job description, okay? So you step into it, and it's a little raw, even if you've had a lot of directing experience, because this isn't a play, it's like some monstrous rolling act of nature, right? It's huge, it's this pageant that takes up so much time and energy and the strength of the town, of so many people in the town and surrounding areas. It's gigantic.
We were going to follow the Laura Ingalls Trail probably 20 years ago, and we ended up remodeling our house instead, added a whole second story, and that kind of put our trip on hold. And now the kids are on their own, so we decided that we're retired. Our first trip is going to be out to follow her trail. My
name is Stanley Gordon. I guess we could be considered owner of the Ingalls Farm dugout site. We acquired the site in 1947. My parents and I moved here after purchasing the farm. We had no idea at that time that there was anything unusual or significant about the farm. We didn't learn until the fall of 1947 that there was a historical connection with Laura Ingalls Wilder. At that time, Garth Williams, who was the illustrator for the second edition of Laura's books, he had been on the trek to identify all of the places that she had written about. And in the process, he had uncovered the fact that Plum Creek was in fact near Walnut Grove. And he found the records at the Redwood County Courthouse that indicated, or that had Charles and Caroline Ingalls' names on the property. And there was a depression in the earth out in the pasture at that time that with the help of an elderly gentleman in town, they identified it as where the Ingalls had lived, in a dugout. The significance of it began to sink in when people began to show up and want to see the dugout site. The people who are interested primarily in the books will be able to identify from Laura's writings where the spring was, where the big rock probably was. There's a flat area that she may have interpreted as the tablelands. There are plum thickets that grow out there yet today. And of course, Plum Creek, that's sort of central. When the water is low, visitors love to wade in the creek, and just like Laura did 125 years ago, I guess. The site, we have deliberately tried to keep the site as natural as possible. In the early years, before we had a nice museum in town, and we built at the museum a dugout exhibit, there was always some desire on the part of the people in the community that there be a dugout reconstruction or something like that done at the dugout site. And we always felt that we should just leave it alone, let people use their imagination. And so we always resisted that, and instead we planted approximately 20 to 25 acres of native grasses, completely bracketing the dugout site. We upgraded the bridge. There was a wooden bridge that I, as an engineer, didn't think was all that safe, and so we constructed a more modern, safe bridge so people can easily get to the other side to view the dugout site. But as far as how things have changed out there, I guess more trees have grown up, but other than that, the dugout site and so on really hasn't changed. To help with the upkeep of the property, we have a cash box that's on the honor system. We have signage asking people at this point for $5 per car, and they put their money into the box on the honor system and then go out, and it's all self-guided out there. We couldn't afford to have someone stand out there and guide people around. So it's strictly on the honor system, but I also have a magnetic loop in the driveway, and so we actually can count the cars that come through. And so we know that approximately 90% of the people are very honorable. So that's how we manage the whole thing, is strictly on the honor system. And people are wonderful. On a couple occasions, someone has been short 50 cents, 25 cents, 15 cents. And on 2 occasions, we have gotten letters by first-class mail where they've enclosed the quarter or the 15 cents that they were short. And that never ceases to amaze us, but it just reconfirms your faith in humanity. It's a first-class clientele that come through. The legacy of the dugout site is important to us because it's been in the family now for almost 70 years. Our family has owned the property longer than anyone in its history. And we are always amazed at how appreciative the visitors are being able to walk where Laura has walked and kind of get some of the same experience that Laura may have gotten there as a little girl. And once that's lost, it can never be recovered. And so our family has made a commitment, and the next generation has also committed to do everything we can to keep this open or available to the public as long as there's an interest. I guess our experience over the years has been very positive, being involved with this site and with the museum. The author Bill Anderson, who is a noted biographer of Laura, always says that On the Banks of Plum Creek is the most pristine of all the Laura sites. And we take that as a compliment.
The exciting parts of our museum that visitors enjoy are the hands-on. We have 8 buildings that you can go through: that Laura history, pioneer history, TV show memorabilia, of course. And of course, as I said, the hands-on are great. I am a museum person. I love going to museums, and usually I have to stick my hands in my pocket because I like to touch things. And I think it's easier for children to learn history is by being able to touch and play and explore. And so our buildings, again, hold the history of Laura Ingalls Wilder and, of course, Walnut Grove, Minnesota. Walnut Grove, Minnesota, again, started about the same time as the Ingalls came. 1870 was our first settlers in the area. We were called Walnut Station at the time, named by the railroad that was coming through. And Laura got here in 1874. The town itself was established and called Walnut Grove officially in 1879. It wasn't until later that Laura wrote her books. On the Banks of Plum Creek, published in 1937. She wrote the story On the Banks of Plum Creek, but never included the name of the town in the book. So if you were excited in 1938, 39 to 1947 to find out where Laura lived, you had a hard time finding out where Laura's Banks of Plum Creek were. Keeping the history alive for Laura Ingalls Wilder and the pioneers, of course, is keeping that time period of history that people might forget about, because it's so easy to walk over to your lamp and turn it on and know it's going to turn on, or go over to your sink and turn on the hot water so you can wash your dishes. Her books and even the TV show bring back that memory of that wasn't original. She's not unique by any means. There's many, many people that live that way. But she wrote down her story and shared it with the world. And that is a treasure. Having kids imagine living like that nowadays without your iPods or your iPads or your cell phones, having to sit in a cabin with one little light glowing, playing a fiddle, and that's your entertainment. It's remarkable and memorable. Favorite parts of the museum for myself, I'm a little biased as the collections manager, but I guess, again, I enjoy the hands-on, but the information that the museum uses about Laura's life. We are not unique, of course. There are other museums about Laura Ingalls Wilder in almost all the places she's lived, including Malone, New York, where her husband lived. But Walnut Grove tells the whole story of Laura Ingalls Wilder. Her life from beginning to end, the TV show part of her life, the book part of her life, kind of tying it all together so you learn about those 3 Lauras. So the exciting building for me is the depot building, which includes, it's a Revere depot building, so it's original depot, but it includes the information of her and her life. And being a huge TV fan myself, I really enjoyed the TV room because it has the original mantle from the TV series. I would say that's probably one of my favorite highlights, is the TV mantle. Because Laura and Pa and Ma and all of them touched it. The depot building includes many other exhibits, including Laura Ingalls Wilder's history, of course, the real Laura, information about the TV series, when the stars visited Walnut Grove, and some of my favorites, a few hands-on activities. Laura Ingalls Wilder came to Walnut Grove in 1874, and then many, many years later, in 1974, 100 years, the Michael Landon, awesome guy that was from Bonanza, he decided to make a TV series called Little House on the Prairie. And so Little House on the Prairie has been running, they're having their anniversary for 40 years this year. And so the Walnut Grove, being that the museum started in 1974, along with the TV series, decided to have a special reunion. And this Little House cast reunion is going to be big. It's going to be great. It's going to be huge. We have 11 cast members coming from the original TV series, and they are so excited, and excited for the fans, excited to experience what the fans loved about the show, and they are coming to Walnut Grove, and it's going to be a blast. The population of Walnut Grove is going to grow from the 880 some that we have currently to probably over, including all the fans, 2,500 plus each day. So we'll have a really big weekend of a lot of people. But it's going to be fun.
Nellie Olson.
We had a family from France that came at the very beginning of April, which, if you know, in Minnesota, it's still probably cold and snowy, but that French family were just so excited. And it was like 40 degrees. But they came to the museum gift store and they went up to the restaurants and talked to everybody. Barely could speak English, but they were so excited. And to have that feeling where they're feeling welcomed. I mean, they came back 3 or 4 times. That's the great connection for Minnesota, is having that friendship and almost family feel in Walnut Grove all the time.
We're from Lansing, Michigan, capital of the state. I read all the books when I was much younger, and then my daughter read all the books, and now she's reading them to her children. What I'm enjoying is being able to see how many of these things I recognize from being in our farmhouse, in our barn that my great-grandparents used. Some of the things, the way they did things, my grandmother and my mother were still doing. And some of the things I remember, like putting an onion on the heart of an onion on a bee sting to draw the stinger out, and all things I learned because of their history of being homesteaders. There's so much to like about this museum because it goes from one thing to another. Even though Grandma's house wasn't part of Laura Ingalls, it still showed how the houses were built at that time, and the floor in the different buildings, and it's just so unique. It's something that we need to let our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren see, because it's something you don't want to lose.
This pageant connects really nicely with the history of Laura Ingalls Wilder because it takes pieces of her story that she lived. She lived all over the Midwest, but pieces of the story that she lived here in this town down the road, a couple of miles down the road. Some of those pieces of her history are embellished, put together, and replayed on this small stage on the prairie. You can hear the prairie wind right now, blowing through the barn. The pageant's been going on for over 3 decades. This is our 37th year of pageant. It started out as a little play in Walnut Grove High School when it was still a high school. I saw it when I was a teenage kid. Sweltering hot. Everybody in the audience, standing room only audience, everyone was dripping with sweat. And I was amazed by this play because I don't know, it seemed like such an encapsulation of community. You know, the message of the play was about working hard and coming together, celebrating successes, being there for each other and failures, and building something, making something bigger than yourself. And all the people on the stage were people that we knew. You know, these were our neighbors, these were our friends. Everything was familiar about this play. The pageant takes place the last 3 weekends of July every year. That would be Friday and Saturday, the last 3 weekends of July. Something up there must like the pageant because we've had wild weather over the years that has a tendency to disappear at pageant time. We've only had just 2 or 3 cancellations over the decades, right? Once or twice we've asked people to go to their cars and wait out a heavy rain. But for the most part, you know, the show goes on.
I played the role of Laura Ingalls. Well, my cousin was in it about like 3 years ago, and I went to watch it, and I thought it was so awesome. I felt so excited because I was wanting this role for so long. I just love all of it. I just love the cast members and the sets and everything.
Doing the pageant is really important to me personally because it's been grounding me, it's been humbling me, and it's been teaching me how to depend on all these people who work so hard and put so much and have so much knowledge and skill and ability, how to depend on these people to come together and do what they do best. Trust that they're going to do it, know that they're going to do it. Have faith in a play that's about, in part, having faith, you know. But I always have to remember that this is not about me, and the play is saying that too. This is something huger than all of us. There's no one person. There's no 50 people. There's 55 people in the cast. There's 40 people who work behind the scenes. There's no 80, 90 people that this is about. It's something much huger.
My name is Federico Stoll. I'm a photographer, documentary photographer. I'm from Montevideo, Uruguay. I came from Montevideo, Uruguay, and when was 2010, and I was searching the weather in Uruguay, and you have another option that says Montevideo, Minnesota, and I say, what is this, Montevideo, Minnesota? Our city in another country. And the connection basically is the name, and then the statue of Jose Artigas that was like was the starting point about all the identity that we have in common about the sister cities. In Uruguay, the people don't know so much about this town, but here the people know a lot. So I was walking around and talking with all the people, and taking pictures. I prefer to live as a citizen from here. So I was doing like all the sports from the city. In all the bars, in all the festivals, in the rodeo, in the races, the car race, doing a lot of things, common things, but this is the best chance that I, as a photographer, to take some good pictures. I made a book of Montevideo. The name is Hello Montevideo. And the story was very successful in Uruguay because the people don't know, and very successful here because I was like in a very good situation to tell all the stories of the city. I was with all the immigrants from here, the people who live here, all the events. So, and now the town has a book of all the stories that I put together. And also in Uruguay is sold out, so I don't have any more books. This was a big successful in Uruguay. The press was very hungry. I'm very happy because now the bonds between the cities are very strong. The queen of Montevideo of 2011 was in Uruguay also as a queen, and he was in the Carnival of Uruguay. And then Deborah Lee, the mayor, was with the president of Uruguay and the mayor. We have both women in charge of Montevideo, Uruguay, and Montevideo, Minnesota, and I think was great. These days I'm making like some pictures to make a second edition, and I will put all the candombe things in the book. And I need to make a second edition because in Uruguay people want to buy the book and wants to have like more, became interesting about the relationship, because it's a place that there is no Uruguayan, but they have a lot of the culture. I think it's like a identity special. It's like I don't know so many places in the world that happen this, you know, that another culture from US or from, I don't know, any country get a country without any citizens of this place. So it's an interesting experience, you know, that is happening here. So the book will reflect that.
This program on Pioneer Public Television is funded by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund, with money from the vote of the people of Minnesota on November 4th, 2008. Additional support provided by Mark and Margaret Yako Julien in honor of Shalom Hill Farm, a nonprofit rural education retreat center in a beautiful prairie setting near Windham in southwestern Minnesota. ShalomHillFarm.org. The Arrowwood Resort and Conference Center, your ideal choice for Minnesota resorts offering luxury townhomes, 18 holes of golf, Darling Reflection Spa, Big Splash Water Park, and much more. Alexandria, Minnesota, a relaxing vacation or great location for an event. Explore Alex.com. Easy to get to, hard to leave.